I'm Robert Mitchell, I'm 68 years old, and I never thought I'd hear my own flesh and blood speak to me like that. Listen to this story until the end, and tell me what you would have done in my place. Also, let me know what part of this story touched your heart the most, and from which corner of the world you're listening to me. Right now I'm sitting in my living room, the same living room where I raised 3 children, where I celebrated birthdays, Christmases, graduations. The same living room where my daughter Jennifer looked me in the eye and told me I was being selfish for not giving my house to her in-laws. Selfish. Me, who worked 2 jobs for 30 years to pay for this house. Me, who took out a second mortgage to pay for her college education. Me, who gave her everything I had, and apparently it still wasn't enough. You know what hurts the most? It's not the disrespect, though that cuts deep. It's not even the ingratitude, though that stings like hell. What hurts the most is remembering when that same daughter used to climb on my lap every Sunday morning and say, "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to live next door to you forever." I used to tell her, "Sweetheart, you can live wherever makes you happy, but you'll always have a home here with me." How wrong I was to think that meant something to her. My wife, Margaret, God rest her soul, used to warn me about this. "Robert," she'd say, "you're giving Jennifer everything too easily. She needs to learn the value of hard work, the value of earning things." But I didn't listen. I thought that by being generous with my daughter, she'd be generous with me when it was my turn to need her. What a fool I was. Margaret had a way of seeing through people that I never had. She could spot manipulation from a mile away, while I always wanted to see the best in everyone, especially in our children. "Robert," she'd tell me when Jennifer was in high school, "that girl has you wrapped around her little finger. She knows exactly what to say to get what she wants from you." I remember one particular incident when Jennifer was 17. She wanted to go on a spring break trip to Cancun with her friends, something that cost nearly $2,000. Margaret said absolutely not, that we couldn't afford it, and that Jennifer needed to get a job if she wanted expensive vacations. But Jennifer came to me with tears in her eyes, telling me how all her friends were going, how she'd be the only one left out, how it would ruin her senior year if she couldn't go. I gave her the money. I took it out of our emergency fund, the money we'd been saving for Margaret's dental work that she'd been putting off. Margaret was furious, not just about the money, but about what I was teaching Jennifer. "You're teaching her that she doesn't have to work for anything," Margaret said. "You're teaching her that all she has to do is cry and manipulate, and Daddy will give her whatever she wants. She's just a kid, Margaret. She'll learn responsibility when she gets older." "No, Robert, she won't. Because every time she should learn a lesson, you step in and save her from the consequences." Margaret was right, as she usually was, but I couldn't see it then. I thought I was being a good father, a loving father. I thought I was giving my daughter opportunities I never had. What I was really doing was creating a monster. Last month everything seemed normal. Jennifer would come by every Sunday for dinner with her husband David and my 2 grandchildren, Emma and little Tommy. We'd sit around this same table, talk about their week, about the kids' school, about normal family things. Everything seemed fine. Everything seemed like we were a normal, loving family, but I should have seen the signs. I should have noticed how David always seemed uncomfortable in my house, how he'd look around like he was measuring the rooms, calculating square footage. I should have noticed how Jennifer started asking weird questions about my finances, about my retirement plans, about what I planned to do with all this space now that I was alone. Looking back now, I can see that they'd been planning this for months, maybe even years. The questions weren't casual conversation, they were reconnaissance. They were gathering information, figuring out my vulnerabilities, planning their attack. I remember one Sunday dinner about 2 months ago when David made a comment that should have been a red flag. We were sitting in the dining room, and he looked around and said, "Robert, this house is really too big for one person. Have you ever thought about downsizing?" "Not really," I said. "This is my home. Margaret and I built our life here." "But it must be expensive to maintain," Jennifer chimed in. "The heating bills alone must be enormous." "I manage just fine," I told them. "But Dad," Jennifer pressed, "wouldn't you be happier somewhere smaller, somewhere with less responsibility? You could move into one of those nice senior communities, make some friends your own age." At the time, I thought she was just concerned about me. I thought she was worried about her old dad rattling around in this big house all alone. I had no idea she was already planning to take it away from me. The conversation that changed everything happened on a Tuesday evening. I remember it perfectly because it was raining, and Jennifer came over without calling first, which she never does. She seemed nervous, fidgety, like she had something important to say but didn't know how to start. "Dad," she said, sitting across from me in the kitchen, "David and I have been talking, and we have a proposition for you." A proposition, not a request, not a favor. A proposition, like we were business partners instead of family. "What kind of proposition, sweetheart?" I asked, though something in her tone already made me uneasy. "Well, you know David's parents are getting older. His father had that heart attack last year, and his mother can barely take care of herself, let alone him." I nodded. I knew about David's father's health problems. I'd even sent flowers when he was in the hospital. "They need to move in with family," Jennifer continued. "But David's childhood home is too small for all of us. We've been looking at bigger places, but everything's so expensive now, and with the kids' school expenses and everything." I could see where this was going, but I let her continue. "This house is perfect, Dad. It's big enough for everyone. David's parents could have the master bedroom, we could take the guest room, the kids could each have their own room, and you could take the small room upstairs." The small room upstairs. The room that used to be a storage closet that I converted into a tiny office. She wanted me to give up my house, my master bedroom, my space, and move into what was essentially a closet. "Jennifer," I said carefully, "this is my home. I've lived here for 35 years. Your mother and I bought this house when you were just 2 years old." "I know, Dad, but think about it practically. You don't need all this space. You're here all alone, and David's parents really need our help. It would be perfect for everyone. Perfect for everyone except me, apparently." "What exactly are you asking me to do, Jennifer?" "We want you to sign the house over to us, legally. That way we can all live here as one big family, and you won't have to worry about maintenance or property taxes or any of that stuff anymore." I stared at my daughter, this woman I'd raised, this person I'd sacrificed everything for, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wanted me to give up my house, my independence, my dignity, and move into a closet so her husband's parents could be comfortable. "And what if I say no?" I asked. That's when her face changed. The sweet, loving expression disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating that I'd never seen before. "Dad, you're being unreasonable. David's parents have nowhere else to go. Are you really going to let them end up in some horrible nursing home just because you're too attached to material things?" Material things. My home, the place where I'd built my life, where I'd raised my family, where my wife had died in my arms, was just a material thing to her. "Jennifer, this isn't about being attached to material things. This is about my life, my independence, my right to live in my own home." "You're right," she laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "Dad, you're 68 years old. How much longer do you really think you can maintain this big house by yourself? Wouldn't it be better to have family around to help you?" "Help me." She made it sound like she was doing me a favor by asking me to give up everything I'd worked for. "I can take care of myself just fine, Jennifer." "Can you? Really? When was the last time you cleaned those gutters? When was the last time you fixed that leaky faucet in the guest bathroom? You're not getting any younger, Dad." Every word felt like a slap in the face. My own daughter was treating me like I was some decrepit old man who couldn't take care of himself. The truth was, I had been maintaining this house just fine. Yes, I hired people to clean the gutters now instead of doing it myself, but that was just common sense, not incompetence. Yes, I called a plumber for the leaky faucet, but that's what most people do when they have plumbing problems. But Jennifer was painting a picture of me as some helpless old man who was barely hanging on, who needed to be rescued from his own independence. It was insulting and hurtful, and it showed me just how little respect she had for me. "I appreciate your concern," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "but I'm not ready to give up my independence, and I'm certainly not ready to give up my house." That's when she exploded. "God, Dad, you're so selfish. Here we are, trying to help family, trying to do the right thing, and you're worried about your precious house. David's parents took care of him his whole life, and now it's our turn to take care of them. But you're too selfish to help." Selfish. There was that word again. "Jennifer, I've helped you your entire life. I paid for your college. I helped with the down payment on your first apartment. I've been there for every crisis, every emergency. How does that make me selfish? That was different. That was your job as a parent. And this is different too. This is my house, my home, my life. I worked for 30 years to pay off this mortgage. I earned this. So what, you're just going to let David's parents suffer because you earned it? What kind of person does that make you? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and I realized I didn't recognize the person sitting across from me. This wasn't the little girl who used to beg me to read her one more bedtime story. This wasn't the teenager who cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. This wasn't the young woman who asked me to walk her down the aisle because she said I was the most important man in her life. This was a stranger who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to getting what she wanted. "Jennifer," I said quietly, "I think you should go home and think about what you're asking me to do. Really think about it." "I have thought about it, Dad. We all have. David's parents, David, me, even the kids. Everyone thinks this is the best solution. Everyone except me. Because you're being stubborn and selfish." That's when I stood up. I'd heard enough. "Jennifer, I want you to leave now." "Dad, don't be ridiculous. We need to figure this out." "There's nothing to figure out. This is my house, and I'm not giving it to anyone. End of discussion." "Fine," she shouted, standing up so fast her chair fell over. "But don't come crying to us when you're lonely and miserable in this big empty house. And don't expect us to keep coming around when you've made it clear that your house is more important than your family." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the picture frames on the wall rattled. I stood there in my kitchen, shaking with anger and hurt, wondering how my relationship with my daughter had come to this. That was 3 weeks ago, and I haven't heard from her since. No phone calls, no visits, no Sunday dinners. It's like I don't exist anymore. The grandchildren I used to see every week, the little voices that used to fill this house with laughter, gone. All because I wouldn't give up my home. But here's what Jennifer doesn't know, what she didn't bother to ask before making her demands. This house isn't just my home. It's my security. It's my retirement plan. It's the only thing of value I have left after spending everything on my family. When Margaret got sick, really sick, the medical bills ate up most of our savings. The experimental treatments that insurance wouldn't cover, the private nurses, the special equipment we needed to make her comfortable at home during her final months. I spent everything we had, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat, but it left me with very little. Margaret's illness lasted 18 months, and every day of those 18 months, I watched our savings disappear. The first thing to go was our vacation fund. We'd been planning a trip to Europe for our 40th anniversary, something we'd been saving for years. That money went to pay for a treatment that might have given Margaret a few more months. Then went our emergency fund, the money we'd set aside for unexpected expenses. That paid for the hospital bed we had to rent when Margaret could no longer climb the stairs to our bedroom. It paid for the oxygen tank, the wheelchair, the dozens of medications that weren't covered by insurance. Finally, I had to dip into our retirement savings, the 401k I'd been contributing to for 30 years. I took early withdrawals, paid the penalties, watched decades of careful saving evaporate in a matter of months. But I didn't care. Margaret was my wife, my partner, my best friend. If there was even a chance that spending money could save her or make her more comfortable, I was going to spend it. When she died, I was left with this house and not much else. My Social Security covers my basic expenses, but just barely. The house is my nest egg, my insurance policy, my safety net. If I give it away, I have nothing. At 68, I can't just start over. I can't get another job and rebuild my life. This house is my lifeline, and Jennifer wanted me to just hand it over like it was nothing. But there's something else Jennifer doesn't know. Something I discovered by accident 2 days after our fight. I was feeling lonely, missing my grandchildren, so I decided to drive by Emma's school just to catch a glimpse of her. I know it sounds pathetic, but I missed her so much. I was sitting in my car across the street when I saw David's mother, Patricia, picking up Emma from school. Patricia, the woman who supposedly couldn't take care of herself, who was so frail and helpless that she needed to move into my house. She was walking just fine, carrying Emma's backpack, laughing and talking with other parents. I followed them. I'm not proud of it, but I did. They went to the grocery store where Patricia pushed a full cart around the store, lifted heavy bags, loaded everything into her car by herself. This was not a woman who needed to be taken care of. This was a perfectly healthy woman who was perfectly capable of living independently. Then they went to the park where Patricia chased Tommy around the playground, pushed him on the swings, helped him across the monkey bars. She was more active than some people half her age. There was absolutely nothing wrong with her that would require her to move in with family. That's when I realized what was really going on. This wasn't about taking care of David's aging parents. This was about getting a free house. David and Jennifer had cooked up this scheme to manipulate me into giving them my property, using David's parents as an excuse. I felt sick. My own daughter had lied to me, manipulated me, tried to guilt me into giving up everything I had, based on a complete fabrication. The woman I'd raised, the person I'd trusted more than anyone in the world, had tried to con me out of my home. I drove home that day, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. Not just because Jennifer wasn't speaking to me, but because I realized I didn't really know my daughter at all. The person I thought I'd raised, the values I thought I'd instilled in her, apparently none of it had taken hold. That night, I called my brother Michael in Arizona. Michael and I had always been close, but we don't talk as often as we should. I told him everything, the whole story, and his reaction surprised me. "Robert," he said, "I hate to say this, but I saw this coming." "What do you mean?" "Jennifer's always been entitled. Even when she was a kid, she expected everything to be handed to her. You and Margaret spoiled her rotten. We wanted to give her opportunities we never had. I know, but you gave her everything without making her work for any of it. You paid for her college, her car, her apartment, her wedding. You've been bailing her out of problems her whole life. Did you really think she'd suddenly develop a sense of gratitude and responsibility?" Michael's words stung because they were true. Jennifer had never really struggled for anything. Every time she had a problem, I solved it. Every time she needed money, I provided it. I'd created a person who saw me as a resource to be used, not a father to be respected. "So what do I do now?" I asked. "You did the right thing by saying no. Stick to your guns. Don't let her manipulate you." "But I miss my grandchildren, Michael. I miss Emma and Tommy so much it hurts." "I know, but if you give in now, it'll never end. Jennifer will know that all she has to do is withhold the grandkids, and you'll give her whatever she wants. You'll be a prisoner in your own life." Michael was right, but knowing he was right didn't make it hurt any less. The next few days were the longest of my life. I kept expecting Jennifer to call, to apologize, to realize how unreasonable she'd been. But the phone never rang. The house felt empty, too quiet, too big. For the first time I understood what Jennifer meant about all this space being too much for one person. But it wasn't the space that was too much. It was the silence, the absence of family, of laughter, of life. I'd lived in this house for 35 years, but without my family, it felt like a museum, a monument to a life that used to be. I started having doubts. Maybe Jennifer was right. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I should just give them the house and move into that little room upstairs. At least then I'd have my family back. At least then I wouldn't be alone. But then I'd remember the lies, the manipulation, the way Jennifer had looked at me like I was nothing more than an obstacle to getting what she wanted. And I'd remember something my father told me when I was young. "Son," he said, "never let anyone make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. There's a difference between being generous and being a doormat. Know the difference." I'd been generous with Jennifer her whole life. I'd given her everything I could, sacrificed everything I had for her happiness and success. But what she was asking for now wasn't generosity, it was surrender. She wanted me to give up my independence, my security, my dignity, and accept whatever scraps of respect she was willing to throw my way. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. On Friday, exactly 1 week after our fight, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I drove to Emma's school and waited for her to come out. Not to spy this time, but to talk to her. I needed to see my granddaughter, to make sure she was okay, to let her know that whatever was happening between her mother and me, it had nothing to do with how much I loved her. When Emma came out and saw me, her face lit up like Christmas morning. "Grandpa," she yelled, running toward my car. "I missed you so much. Where have you been?" I got out of the car and hugged her tight, fighting back tears. "I missed you too, sweetheart, more than you know. Mom said you were mad at us. She said you didn't want to see us anymore." My heart broke. Jennifer had told the children that I didn't want to see them. She'd made me the villain in their eyes. "Emma, honey, that's not true. I love you and Tommy more than anything in the world. I would never not want to see you." "Then why haven't you come to Sunday dinner? Why didn't you come to Tommy's soccer game last weekend?" I didn't know how to explain adult problems to a 9-year-old. How do you tell a child that her mother is using her as a weapon in a fight about money and property? Your mom and I had a disagreement, sweetheart. Sometimes adults disagree about things, but that doesn't mean we stop loving each other. What did you disagree about? Before I could answer, I heard a car door slam behind me. I turned around to see Jennifer marching toward us, her face red with anger. "Emma, get in the car, now!" "But Mom, I want to talk to Grandpa." "I said now, Emma." Emma looked confused and scared. She hugged me one more time and whispered, "I love you, Grandpa," before running to her mother's car. Jennifer walked up to me, her eyes blazing with fury. "How dare you come to my daughter's school? How dare you try to turn her against me?" "I wasn't trying to turn her against you, Jennifer. I just wanted to see her, to let her know I love her. If you loved her, you'd do what's best for this family instead of being a selfish old man who cares more about his house than his grandchildren." "Jennifer, please. Can't we talk about this like adults?" "There's nothing to talk about, Dad. You made your choice. You chose your house over your family. Now live with it." She turned to walk away, but I called after her. "Jennifer, wait. I know about David's mother." She stopped and turned around slowly. "What?" "I saw her at the school. I saw her at the grocery store. She's not some helpless invalid who needs to be taken care of. She's perfectly fine." Jennifer's face went pale, then red, then pale again. For a moment, she looked like she might deny it, but then her expression hardened. "So what if she is? That doesn't change anything. We still need a bigger place, and you still have more space than you need. So you lied to me. You made up this whole story about David's parents needing care just to manipulate me into giving you my house." "I didn't lie. I just emphasized certain aspects of the situation." "You lied, Jennifer. You looked me in the eye and lied to your own father to try to steal his home." "Steal? God, Dad, you're so dramatic. We're family. Families help each other. Families don't lie to each other. Families don't manipulate each other. Families don't try to con each other out of their life savings. Life savings, it's just a house, Dad. It's not just a house to me, Jennifer. It's my home. It's my security. It's all I have left. You have us. You have your family." "Do I? Because right now it feels like I have a daughter who sees me as nothing more than a source of free real estate." Jennifer stared at me for a long moment, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she was going to apologize. Maybe she was going to realize how wrong she'd been, how much she'd hurt me. Instead, she said, "You know what, Dad? You're right. You don't have us. Not anymore. Not until you come to your senses and start acting like a father instead of a landlord." She got in her car and drove away, leaving me standing in the school parking lot, watching my granddaughter's face pressed against the back window, tears streaming down her cheeks. That night, I sat in my living room in the same chair where I'd held Emma as a baby, where I'd taught her to read, where we'd watched cartoons together every Sunday morning. The silence was deafening. The house felt like a tomb. I started to wonder if Jennifer was right. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I should just give them the house and move into that little room upstairs. At least then I'd have my family back. At least then I wouldn't be alone. But then I remembered something my father told me when I was young. "Son," he said, "never let anyone make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. There's a difference between being generous and being a doormat. Know the difference." I'd been generous with Jennifer her whole life. I'd given her everything I could, sacrificed everything I had for her happiness and success. But what she was asking for now wasn't generosity. It was surrender. She wanted me to give up my independence, my security, my dignity, and accept whatever scraps of respect she was willing to throw my way. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. The next morning I called my lawyer, James Peterson. James had handled Margaret's will and helped me with some property issues over the years. He was a good man, honest and straightforward. "Robert," he said when I explained the situation, "I'm sorry to hear about this. Family disputes are always the hardest. James, I need to know where I stand legally. Can Jennifer force me to give her the house?" "Absolutely not. The house is in your name. You own it free and clear. No one can force you to transfer ownership. What if she tries to have me declared incompetent or something? Based on what you've told me, you're clearly of sound mind and capable of making your own decisions. But Robert, can I give you some advice?" "Of course. Document everything." Keep records of all your interactions with Jennifer about this. If she's really trying to manipulate you into giving up your property, you want to have evidence of that. You think it might come to that? I hope not. But it's better to be prepared. Also, Robert, have you considered what you want to happen to the house when you're gone? I hadn't really thought about it. I'd always assumed Jennifer would inherit everything, but now I wasn't so sure. What are my options? Well, you could leave it to Jennifer in your will, but you could also leave it to your grandchildren, or to charity, or sell it and donate the proceeds. It's entirely up to you. If I leave it to the grandchildren, could Jennifer get her hands on it? Not if you set up a proper trust. The money could be held for them until they reach a certain age, with an independent trustee managing it. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had some control over the situation. Jennifer might be able to manipulate me emotionally, but she couldn't force me to do anything legally. James, I want to set up that trust. I want to make sure that if something happens to me, my grandchildren are taken care of, but I don't want Jennifer to be able to touch the money. I can do that for you, Robert. It's actually a very wise decision. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went for a long walk around my neighborhood, really looking at it for the first time in a long time. I saw the house where the Johnsons used to live before they moved to Florida. I saw the park where I used to take Jennifer when she was little. I saw the corner store where I'd buy her ice cream on hot summer days. This wasn't just my house, it was my community, my history, my life. Every street corner held a memory. Every neighbor was part of my story. Jennifer wanted me to give all of that up, so she could have a bigger house. She wanted me to abandon the life I'd built, so she could be more comfortable. As I walked, I thought about all the memories this neighborhood held. I remembered teaching Jennifer to ride her bike on the sidewalk in front of our house. I remembered the block parties we used to have, where all the neighbors would bring food and the kids would play in the street until dark. I remembered the Christmas when it snowed, and all the children in the neighborhood came to our yard to build snowmen, because we had the biggest front yard. I remembered the day Margaret and I brought Jennifer home from the hospital. How nervous I was carrying this tiny baby into our house for the first time. I remembered her first steps, taken right here in our living room, from the couch to the coffee table. I remembered her first day of school, how she cried and didn't want to leave me, and how proud I felt watching her walk into that building. All of these memories, all of this history, Jennifer wanted me to just walk away from it like it meant nothing. She wanted me to give up the place where I'd built my life, where I'd raised my family, where my wife had died in my arms, so that she could have more space. When I got home, there was a message on my answering machine. For a moment, my heart leaped, thinking it might be Jennifer calling to apologize. But it was David. Robert, this is David. Look, I know things got heated the other day, but I think we can work this out. Jennifer's really upset, and the kids miss you. Why don't we all sit down and talk about this like adults? There has to be a solution that works for everyone. Call me back. I stared at the answering machine for a long time. David sounded reasonable, conciliatory. Maybe he could talk sense into Jennifer. Maybe we could find a compromise. I called him back. David, it's Robert. I got your message. Robert, thanks for calling. Look, I know Jennifer came on a little strong the other day, but you have to understand, she's just worried about my parents. David, I saw your mother at the school. She looked perfectly healthy to me. There was a long pause. Well, she has good days and bad days. You happened to see her on a good day. David, please don't lie to me. I'm too old and too tired for games. What's this really about? Another pause. Okay, look, you're right. My parents are fine. But Robert, we really do need a bigger place. Jennifer's pregnant. That stopped me cold. Pregnant? She's about 3 months along. We haven't told anyone yet because she had some complications early on, but everything's fine now. We're going to need more space, and this seemed like the perfect solution. Jennifer was pregnant. I was going to have another grandchild. Suddenly, everything felt different. David, why didn't you just tell me that from the beginning? Why make up the story about your parents? Because Jennifer was afraid you'd say no. She thought if we made it about helping elderly family members, you'd be more likely to agree. So instead of trusting me with the truth, she decided to manipulate me with lies. Robert, she's scared. We're barely making ends meet as it is, and with another baby coming, she just wants to make sure her family is secure. And what about my security, David? What about my life, my independence? You'd still have a place to live. You'd be with family. Isn't that better than being alone in this big house? David, I appreciate that you're trying to find a solution, but you're asking me to give up everything I've worked for so that you and Jennifer can have a free house. How is that fair? Life isn't always fair, Robert. Sometimes family has to make sacrifices for each other. I've been making sacrifices for Jennifer her entire life. When is it her turn to sacrifice for me? What do you mean? I mean, why should I be the one to give up my home? Why don't you and Jennifer make some sacrifices? Get a smaller apartment, cut back on expenses, live within your means like the rest of us have to do. Robert, be reasonable. We can't raise 3 kids in a small apartment. People do it every day, David. I raised Jennifer in a 2-bedroom apartment for the first 5 years of her life. We made it work. That was different. Times were different. No, David, what was different was that we didn't expect other people to solve our problems for us. We worked harder, saved more, made do with less. I thought about those early years when Margaret and I were just starting out. We lived in a tiny apartment above a bakery, and the smell of fresh bread would wake us up every morning. We had 1 bedroom, a small living room and a kitchen that was barely big enough for 2 people. When Jennifer was born, we put her crib in our bedroom because there was nowhere else for it to go, but we were happy. We were building something together, working toward a goal. Every month we'd put a little money aside for a down payment on a house. We'd clip coupons, shop at thrift stores, make our own entertainment. We didn't expect anyone to hand us a better life. We worked for it. So you're saying no? Even knowing that Jennifer's pregnant? Even knowing that your grandchildren need a stable home? I'm saying that my grandchildren already have a stable home. It might not be as big as you'd like, but it's theirs. And I'm saying that I have a right to keep my home too. David was quiet for a moment. Robert, I'm going to be honest with you. If you don't help us out here, I don't think Jennifer's going to want to maintain a relationship with you. Is that a threat, David? It's not a threat, it's just reality. Jennifer feels like you're choosing your house over your family. If that's the choice you want to make, then you'll have to live with the consequences. And what consequences are those? No more Sunday dinners, no more visits from the grandkids, no more being part of this family. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My own son-in-law was threatening to cut me off from my grandchildren if I didn't give them my house. David, are you really going to use my grandchildren as weapons against me? I'm not using anyone as weapons, I'm just telling you how Jennifer feels. And how do you feel, David? Do you think it's right to ask an old man to give up his home so you can have a free house? I think family should help family. I think when you have more than you need and your family is struggling, you should be willing to share. More than I need? David, this house is all I have. If I give it to you, I have nothing. You'd have us, you'd have your family. Would I? Because right now it sounds like I only have your family as long as I give you what you want. David sighed. Robert, I'm trying to find a solution here. I'm trying to keep this family together. But you're making it very difficult. I'm making it difficult. I'm not the one making demands. I'm not the one issuing ultimatums. I'm just trying to keep the home I've lived in for 35 years. And Jennifer's just trying to provide for her children. Can't you understand that? Of course I can understand that. But David, there are other ways to provide for your children, ways that don't involve taking everything away from me. Like what? Like getting a better job, like Jennifer going back to work after the baby's born, like moving to a less expensive area, like living within your means instead of expecting other people to subsidize your lifestyle. Jennifer can't work with 3 small children. My wife worked with 3 small children. Millions of women work with children. It's not easy, but it's possible. Margaret had worked part-time as a bookkeeper for a local business when Jennifer and her brothers were small. She'd arrange her schedule around school hours, work while the kids were in class, and be home when they got out. It wasn't easy, and there were days when she was exhausted, but she did what she had to do to help support our family. That's not the kind of life we want for our family. Then you need to figure out how to afford the kind of life you want without taking it away from me. David was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, I'll talk to Jennifer. Maybe we can work something out. David, I hope we can. I really do. But I need you to understand something. I love Jennifer, and I love my grandchildren more than life itself. But I won't be blackmailed, I won't be manipulated. And I won't give up my home because someone threatens to take my family away from me. I understand, Robert. I'll call you in a few days. But he didn't call in a few days. Nobody called. The silence stretched on for another week, then 2 weeks. I started to wonder if I'd ever see my grandchildren again. During those 2 weeks, I had a lot of time to think. I thought about my relationship with Jennifer, about all the times I'd given in to her demands, all the times I'd rescued her from the consequences of her actions. I realized that I'd created this situation by never teaching her that she couldn't have everything she wanted just because she wanted it. I thought about Margaret, about what she would have said about all this. I knew she would have been furious with Jennifer for lying and manipulating me. Margaret had always been the disciplinarian in our family, the one who set boundaries and enforced consequences. If she'd been alive, this never would have happened. I also thought about my grandchildren, about Emma and Tommy and the baby that was coming. I wondered what kind of people they would grow up to be if they learned that all you had to do to get what you wanted was to lie and manipulate and threaten people. I wondered if I was doing them a favor by standing up to their mother, by showing them that actions have consequences. Then, last Tuesday, something happened that changed everything. I was working in my garden, trying to keep myself busy, when I heard a car pull into my driveway. I looked up to see a police car and my heart stopped. Had something happened to Jennifer? To the children? Officer Martinez got out of the car and walked over to me. "Mr. Mitchell?" "Yes, that's me." "Is everything okay? Is my family all right?" "Your family is fine, sir. I'm here because we received a call about a welfare check. Someone reported that you might be in danger or unable to care for yourself." I stared at him. "I'm sorry, what?" "Someone called and said they were concerned about your mental state, that you might be suffering from dementia or depression, that you might be a danger to yourself." "Who called?" "I can't tell you that, sir, but I can see that you're clearly fine. You seem alert, coherent, well-groomed. Your property is well maintained. I don't see any cause for concern." "Officer Martinez, I think I know who called. My daughter and I are having a disagreement about my house, and I think she's trying to have me declared incompetent so she can take control of my property." Officer Martinez frowned. "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Mitchell. Do you have any evidence of that?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it." "Officer, what happens if someone keeps making false reports about me?" "Well, if we determine that someone is making false reports, they could be charged with filing a false police report, which is a misdemeanor. But Mr. Mitchell, I have to ask, are you sure you're okay? Are you eating regularly, taking care of yourself, staying in touch with friends and family?" "I'm fine, officer. I'm hurt and lonely because my daughter is using my grandchildren to try to manipulate me into giving her my house, but I'm not mentally ill or incompetent." "I see. Well, sir, I'm going to file a report stating that you're clearly competent and caring for yourself properly. If we get any more calls like this, we'll note that this appears to be a family dispute rather than a genuine welfare concern." After Officer Martinez left, I sat on my front porch for a long time trying to process what had just happened. Jennifer had called the police on me. My own daughter had tried to have me declared mentally incompetent. The woman I'd raised, the person I'd loved and supported her entire life, was now actively trying to destroy me. I felt something I'd never felt before toward Jennifer. Anger. Not hurt, not disappointment, but pure, cold anger. She'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. That evening I called James Peterson again. "James, Jennifer just tried to have me declared mentally incompetent. She called the police and reported that I was a danger to myself." "Jesus, Robert, I'm sorry. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but I'm done playing games. I want to change my will. I don't want Jennifer to inherit anything." "Robert, are you sure? That's a big decision. Maybe you should think about it for a few days." "I've thought about it. James, my daughter just tried to have me committed so she could steal my house. I'm not leaving her anything." "Okay, what do you want to do instead?" "I want to set up that trust for my grandchildren, like we discussed, and I want to leave a portion to charity. And James, I want to write a letter explaining why I made these decisions, so that someday when my grandchildren are old enough to understand, they'll know what really happened. I can do that for you, Robert." "When do you want to come in?" "Tomorrow." The next day I spent 3 hours in James's office, restructuring my entire estate. When I was done, Jennifer would inherit nothing. The house would be sold, and the proceeds would be split between a trust for my grandchildren and several charities that Margaret and I had always supported. I also wrote a letter, a long letter, explaining everything that had happened, everything Jennifer had done, and why I'd made the decisions I'd made. I sealed it with instructions that it should be given to Emma and Tommy when they turned 18. When I got home that afternoon, there was another message on my answering machine. This time, it was Jennifer. "Dad, we need to talk. I'm coming over tonight at 7 o'clock. We're going to settle this once and for all." I looked at the clock. It was 5:30. I had an hour and a half to prepare for what I knew was going to be the most difficult conversation of my life. At exactly 7 o'clock, I heard cars pulling into my driveway. I looked out the window and saw Jennifer's car, followed by David's car, followed by a car I didn't recognize. They'd brought reinforcements. Jennifer knocked on the door, and I opened it to find her standing there with David, his parents, and a man in a suit who I assumed was a lawyer. "Dad, we need to talk." "I can see that. Come in." They all filed into my living room, and I felt like I was being invaded. These people, these strangers, were in my home preparing to gang up on me. "Dad," Jennifer said, sitting on the edge of my couch, "this has gone on long enough. We need to resolve this situation." "I agree. The situation is resolved. I'm keeping my house." "Dad, be reasonable. Look around you. This house is too big for one person. You're rattling around in here all alone, and we have a growing family that needs space." "Jennifer, we've had this conversation. My answer hasn't changed." David's father, Frank, spoke up. "Robert, I think there's been some misunderstanding. We're not asking you to give us your house. We're asking you to let us help you." "Help me what?" "Help you transition to a more manageable living situation. You could move into a nice senior community, somewhere with activities and people your own age, and we could take over the burden of maintaining this big house." "The burden?" "Frank, this house isn't a burden to me. It's my home." The man in the suit opened his briefcase. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm attorney William Hayes. I represent David and Jennifer. We'd like to propose a legal arrangement that would benefit everyone involved." "I have my own attorney, thank you." "Of course, but perhaps you'd like to hear our proposal before you make any final decisions." "I'm listening." "We're prepared to offer you a life estate in this property. You would retain the right to live here for the rest of your life, but ownership would transfer to David and Jennifer. In exchange, they would take over all maintenance, property taxes, and upkeep. You'd have no financial responsibilities, but you'd still have a place to live." "And what happens if David and Jennifer decide they don't want me living here anymore?" "The life estate is legally binding. They couldn't force you to leave." "But they could make my life miserable until I chose to leave." "Mr. Mitchell, I think you're being overly suspicious." "Am I? Mr. Hayes, did you know that Jennifer called the police yesterday and tried to have me declared mentally incompetent?" The lawyer looked surprised and glanced at Jennifer. "I wasn't aware of that." "Well, now you are. So forgive me if I'm not eager to put myself at the mercy of people who are already trying to have me committed." Jennifer's face turned red. "Dad, I was worried about you. You've been acting strange, isolating yourself, not returning phone calls. I thought something might be wrong." "Something is wrong, Jennifer. My daughter is trying to steal my house and using my grandchildren as weapons against me. That's what's wrong. I'm not trying to steal anything. I'm trying to help you. By lying to me about David's parents, by manipulating me with fake emergencies, by calling the police and claiming I'm mentally ill." David's mother, Patricia, spoke up. "Robert, I think there's been a misunderstanding about my health situation." "No, Patricia, there's been no misunderstanding. I saw you at the school. I saw you at the grocery store. You're perfectly fine, and everyone in this room knows it." "Well, yes, I'm managing okay right now, but my health could deteriorate at any time. And when it does, if it does, there are nursing homes, assisted living facilities, home health care services. There are lots of options that don't involve me giving up my house." Frank leaned forward. "Robert, those options are expensive. We're trying to find a solution that works for everyone." "Frank, let me be very clear about something. Your financial problems are not my responsibility. Your housing needs are not my responsibility. I didn't ask you to have children you couldn't afford to house properly. I didn't ask you to live beyond your means. And I'm not going to sacrifice my security to solve problems that you created." "Dad!" Jennifer stood up. "How can you be so heartless? We're family." "Are we, Jennifer?" "Because family doesn't lie to each other. Family doesn't manipulate each other. Family doesn't try to have each other committed to mental institutions. Family doesn't threaten to take grandchildren away from their grandparents. I never threatened anything. Really? Then why haven't I seen Emma and Tommy in 3 weeks? Why haven't they been allowed to call me? Why did David tell me that if I didn't give you my house, I wouldn't be part of this family anymore? David looked uncomfortable. Robert, I was just trying to explain how Jennifer felt. No, David, you were issuing an ultimatum. You were telling me that my relationship with my grandchildren was conditional on giving you my property. Jennifer sat back down, and for the first time she looked uncertain. Dad, I never meant for it to go this far. Then why did it, Jennifer? Why are we sitting here with lawyers and ultimatums instead of having a normal family conversation? Because you won't listen to reason. Whose reason? Your reason. Jennifer, your reason is that I should give up my home, my independence and my security so that you can have a bigger house for free. How is that reasonable? Attorney Hayes cleared his throat. Mr. Mitchell, perhaps we could discuss some alternative arrangements. What if David and Jennifer purchased the house from you at fair market value? You could use the proceeds to buy a smaller place, and everyone would get what they need. Mr. Hayes, do David and Jennifer have the money to purchase this house at fair market value? Well, they would need to secure financing, but so they want me to sell them my house, probably at below market value, and then trust them to make payments. What happens when they can't make the payments? What happens when they decide they need the money for something else? We would draw up a legally binding contract. Mr. Hayes, I've been legally bound to these people my entire life. It's called being a family. That didn't stop them from lying to me, manipulating me, and trying to have me committed. Why would a piece of paper be any different? Jennifer started crying. Dad, why are you being so mean? Why won't you help us? Jennifer, I've helped you your entire life. I paid for your education, your wedding, your first apartment. I've been there for every crisis, every emergency, every time you needed anything. But this isn't about helping you. This is about you taking everything I have left. It's just a house, Dad. No, Jennifer, it's not just a house. It's my home. It's my security. It's my independence. It's the only thing I have left that's mine. And you want me to give it up so you can be more comfortable. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden Margaret and I had planted together, at the tree we'd planted when Jennifer was born. You know what the saddest part of all this is? I said, not turning around. I would have helped you. If you'd come to me honestly, if you'd told me the truth about your situation, if you'd asked for help instead of demanding my house, I would have found a way to help you. You would have? Jennifer's voice was small. Of course I would have. I could have helped with a down payment on a bigger place. I could have co-signed a loan. I could have helped you find a solution that didn't involve me giving up everything I've worked for. Dad, it's not too late. We could still do that. I turned around to face her. Yes, it is too late, Jennifer. It's too late because you lied to me. It's too late because you tried to manipulate me. It's too late because you called the police and tried to have me declared mentally incompetent. It's too late because you used my grandchildren as weapons against me. Dad, I'm sorry. I was scared and desperate, and I made mistakes. Jennifer, some mistakes can be forgiven. Some mistakes can be fixed. But some mistakes change everything forever. This is one of those mistakes. What do you mean? I mean that I've changed my will. You're not inheriting this house or anything else. The room went completely silent. Jennifer's face went white. Dad, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I've set up a trust for Emma and Tommy. They'll inherit everything when they turn 25. You get nothing. Dad, please, you can't do this to me, to us. We need this house. Jennifer, you should have thought about that before you tried to steal it from me. Attorney Hayes stood up. Mr. Mitchell, perhaps you should reconsider. Disinheriting your daughter is a very serious decision. Mr. Hayes, trying to have your father committed so you can steal his house is also a very serious decision. Jennifer made her choice. Now she has to live with the consequences. David stood up too. Robert, this is crazy. You're destroying this family over a house. No, David. Jennifer destroyed this family when she decided that my house was more important than my dignity, my independence, and my rights. I'm just protecting myself from further abuse. Abuse, Dad? How can you say that? I love you. Jennifer, if this is how you treat people you love, I'd hate to see how you treat people you don't like. Dad, please, I'm begging you. Don't do this. Think about Emma and Tommy. Think about the baby I'm carrying. Don't you want to be part of their lives? I want that more than anything in the world, Jennifer. But I won't be blackmailed into giving up my home to get it. It doesn't have to be blackmail. We can work something out. Can we? Because 3 weeks ago you told me that if I didn't give you my house, I wouldn't be part of this family anymore. That sounds like blackmail to me. I was angry. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did mean it, Jennifer, and you know what? It worked. You successfully drove me out of your life. The only difference is, now I'm staying out by choice. I walked to the front door and opened it. I think this conversation is over. I'd like you all to leave now. Dad, please, let's keep talking. We can figure this out. There's nothing to figure out, Jennifer. You made your position clear, and I've made mine clear. You want my house, and I want to keep it. One of us is going to be disappointed, and it's not going to be me. Dad, if you do this, if you cut me out of your will, I'll never forgive you. Jennifer, I'll never forgive you for trying to steal my house and have me committed. I guess we're even. One by one, they filed out of my house. Jennifer was the last to leave. She stood in the doorway for a moment, tears streaming down her face. Dad, I love you. I don't want to lose you. Then you shouldn't have tried to take everything away from me. Can't we start over? Can't we try to fix this? Jennifer, some things can't be fixed. Some things, once they're broken, stay broken forever. She left, and I closed the door behind her. I stood in my hallway in my house, surrounded by the silence that had become my constant companion. But for the first time in weeks, it wasn't a sad silence. It was a peaceful silence. It was the silence of a man who had stood up for himself, who had refused to be bullied or manipulated, who had chosen his dignity over his family's approval. That was 2 days ago. I haven't heard from Jennifer since, and I don't expect to. I've lost my daughter, and I've lost my grandchildren, at least for now. Maybe someday when Emma and Tommy are older, they'll understand what really happened. Maybe they'll seek me out and want to hear my side of the story. Or maybe they won't. Maybe Jennifer will poison them against me forever. Maybe I'll never see them again, but I still have my house. I still have my independence. I still have my dignity. And sometimes, when you're 68 years old and everyone around you thinks you're too old and too weak to stand up for yourself, that's enough. The days since that confrontation have been quiet, but not empty. I've been thinking a lot about my life, about the choices I've made, about the man I want to be in whatever years I have left. I've been thinking about Margaret, about what she would say about all this. I know she would be proud of me for standing up to Jennifer. Margaret never tolerated manipulation or dishonesty, not from anyone, not even from our own children. She would have been furious about the lies, about the attempt to have me declared incompetent, about using the grandchildren as weapons. But I also know she would be sad about the outcome. Margaret loved Jennifer despite her flaws, and she would have wanted us to find a way to reconcile. She would have wanted the family to stay together. The truth is, I'm sad about it too. I miss my grandchildren terribly. I miss Emma's laugh, Tommy's questions about everything, the way they both used to run to me when I walked in the door. I miss being part of their lives, watching them grow, being their grandfather. But I don't regret my decision. I couldn't let Jennifer manipulate me into giving up everything I'd worked for. I couldn't reward her lies and threats by giving her what she wanted. And I couldn't let my grandchildren grow up thinking that manipulation and dishonesty are acceptable ways to get what you want. Yesterday, I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my old friend Bill Henderson. Bill and I worked together for 20 years before we both retired. We used to have lunch every few weeks, but I'd been so caught up in family drama that I'd let our friendship slide. "Robert," Bill said when he heard my voice, "where the hell have you been? I've been calling you for weeks. I've been dealing with some family issues, Bill. It's been a rough time. Want to talk about it? How about lunch tomorrow?" We met at our usual place, a little diner downtown that makes the best apple pie in the city. I told Bill everything, the whole story, and he listened without interrupting. "Jesus, Robert," he said when I finished. "I'm sorry. That's a hell of a thing for a daughter to do to her father. I keep wondering if I did the right thing, Bill. Maybe I should have just given them the house." "Are you kidding me? Robert, what Jennifer did was unforgivable. Lying to you, trying to manipulate you, calling the cops on you. That's not how family treats family. But I miss my grandchildren so much it hurts. I know you do. But Robert, think about what you would have been teaching those kids if you'd given in. You would have been teaching them that lying and manipulation work, that if you threaten people long enough, they'll give you what you want." Bill was right, and I knew it. But knowing it didn't make it hurt any less. What do I do now, Bill? How do I move forward? You live your life, Robert. You enjoy your house, your independence, your freedom. You make new friends, find new activities, create new memories. You don't let Jennifer's selfishness define the rest of your life. It's not that easy, Bill. This house feels so empty without family in it. Then fill it with other things. Join a club, volunteer somewhere, take a class. There's a whole world out there, Robert, and you're only 68. You've got years left to live. Bill was right about that too. I'd been so focused on what I'd lost that I hadn't thought about what I could still gain. I'd been so caught up in being a grandfather that I'd forgotten I was also just Robert, a man with his own interests and desires and possibilities. That afternoon, I drove to the community center and picked up a schedule of activities. There were art classes, book clubs, volunteer opportunities, exercise programs. There was a whole community of people my age, people who might become friends, people who might help fill the silence in my house. I signed up for a woodworking class. I'd always enjoyed working with my hands, and I thought it might be nice to learn a new skill. I also signed up to volunteer at the local food bank. Margaret and I had always talked about doing more volunteer work when we retired, but then she got sick, and we never had the chance. The woodworking class starts next week, and I'm looking forward to it. The volunteer orientation is on Friday. For the first time in months, I have things to look forward to. Reasons to get up in the morning that don't involve family drama. I've also been thinking about traveling. Margaret and I had planned to see Europe after we retired, but her illness put an end to those plans. Maybe it's time to take that trip, to see the places we dreamed about together. Maybe it's time to live for myself instead of always living for other people. This morning, I was working in my garden when my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, came over. She's a widow about my age, and we've been neighbors for 15 years, but we've never really talked much beyond polite hellos. "Robert," she said, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but I haven't seen Jennifer and the children around lately. Is everything okay?" I thought about giving her a polite non-answer, but something about her kind face made me want to tell the truth. "We had a falling out, Helen. Jennifer wanted me to give her my house, and when I said no, she cut me off from my grandchildren." Helen's face showed genuine shock. "She wanted you to give her your house? Your home?" She said I didn't need all this space, that her family needed it more than I did. "Robert, that's terrible. This is your home. You have every right to live here for as long as you want." "Thank you for saying that, Helen. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being unreasonable." "You're not being unreasonable at all. You're being sensible. A person's home is sacred, Robert. No one has the right to take that away from you, not even family." We talked for another hour, and I learned that Helen had gone through something similar with her own son a few years ago. He'd wanted her to sell her house and move into a senior living facility so he could have the money for his business. When she refused, he'd stopped speaking to her for 2 years. "What happened?" I asked. "His business failed anyway, and he realized he'd been wrong to ask me to give up my security for his dreams. He apologized and we reconciled. But Robert, even if he hadn't apologized, I wouldn't have regretted my decision. This is my home, my life, my choice. Do you think Jennifer will ever come around?" "I don't know, Robert. Some people learn from their mistakes, and some people just get angrier when they don't get their way. But either way, you did the right thing by standing up for yourself." After Helen left, I sat on my front porch for a long time, thinking about what she'd said. Maybe Jennifer would come around someday, and maybe she wouldn't. But either way, I had to live my life. I couldn't spend whatever years I had left waiting for her to apologize or hoping she'd change her mind. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called a travel agent and asked about tours to Europe. There's a 3-week trip to Italy, France, and Spain that leaves in 2 months. It's expensive, but I can afford it. And what's the point of saving money if you never spend it on the things that matter? I booked the trip. For the first time since Margaret died, I'm going to see the world. I'm going to eat pasta in Rome, drink wine in Paris, watch flamenco dancers in Madrid. I'm going to live the life Margaret and I dreamed about, even if I have to live it alone. I've also been thinking about the letter I wrote for Emma and Tommy, the one that explains why I changed my will. I want them to understand that I didn't cut their mother out of my inheritance because I stopped loving her. I did it because I couldn't reward her for trying to destroy me. But I also want them to know that I never stopped loving them, that every day since this started, I've thought about them, missed them, hoped that someday we'd be reunited. I want them to know that the money in their trust fund isn't just an inheritance, it's a message. It's me telling them that I believe in their future, that I want them to have opportunities, that I love them even when I can't be with them. Maybe when they're 18 and they read that letter, they'll understand. Maybe they'll seek me out and want to have a relationship with me. Or maybe they'll be so poisoned against me by then that they won't care. But at least they'll know the truth. At least they'll know that their grandfather loved them enough to protect their future, even when it cost him his relationship with their mother. You know what I've learned from all this? I've learned that family isn't just about blood. Family is about respect, about loyalty, about treating each other with kindness and honesty. Jennifer may be my daughter by blood, but she stopped being my family the moment she decided to lie to me and manipulate me. Real family doesn't threaten you. Real family doesn't try to steal from you. Real family doesn't try to have you committed when you don't give them what they want. I've also learned that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. Jennifer said she loved me, but her actions showed that she loved my house more than she loved me, and I've learned that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. At 68, I thought my fighting days were over. I thought I was supposed to just be grateful for whatever scraps of attention my family was willing to give me, but I was wrong. Age doesn't mean you have to accept abuse. Age doesn't mean you have to give up your rights. I've learned that dignity is more important than peace, that self-respect is more valuable than family approval, that sometimes being alone with your integrity is better than being surrounded by people who don't respect you. Most importantly, I've learned that life isn't over just because one chapter ends badly. I may have lost my daughter and my grandchildren, but I haven't lost myself. I still have my home, my health, my independence, and my future. I still have choices to make, adventures to have, people to meet. So here I am sitting in my living room, in my house at 68 years old, starting over. It's not the life I planned, but it's the life I chose. It's a life with dignity, with independence, with self-respect. Is it lonely? Yes, sometimes it's very lonely. Do I miss my grandchildren? Every single day. Do I regret my decision? Not for a second, because I'd rather be alone with my dignity than surrounded by people who see me as nothing more than a source of free real estate. Now I want to hear from you. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Would you have given up your house to keep your family? Would you have stood your ground like I did? And tell me, from what corner of the world are you listening to this story? Because at the end of the day, we all have to decide what we're willing to sacrifice for the people we love, and what we're not willing to sacrifice no matter what. We all have to decide where we draw the line between generosity and self-destruction, between love and enabling, between family loyalty and self-respect. I drew my line at my front door. I decided that my home, my security, my independence were not negotiable, not even for family. Some people might think that makes me selfish. I think it makes me human. And maybe, just maybe, someday Emma and Tommy will understand that their grandfather wasn't a selfish old man who chose a house over his family. Maybe they'll understand that he was a man who loved them enough to teach them, even from a distance, that you should never let anyone take away your dignity, no matter who they are or how much you love them. Maybe they'll understand that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the example of standing up for yourself, of refusing to be a victim, of choosing self-respect over self-sacrifice. Or maybe they won't understand any of that. Maybe they'll just remember me as the grandfather who disappeared from their lives when they were young, but at least I'll know that I tried to teach them something important, even if I had to do it by example rather than by words. At least I'll know that I lived my final years as the man I wanted to be, not as the man other people wanted me to be. And that, my friends, is enough.